Hey there, internet friends, and welcome to That D Plus Show. Class is in session for the only show from that nerdy site that lets you know what kind of quality to expect right from the name. I'm your host, Trevor Starkey, and each week we dive into a different Disney Plus offering and discuss its history, how it holds up today, and our general impressions. If you like the show, we would love it if you like, subscribe, rate, review, share the podcast with your friends, all that fun stuff. Joining me today, we have, for the first time in quite a while, a three-person show. We have Cameron, my brother-in-arms for a lot of these recently. Cameron, how you doing?
Say the magic words, fat Gandalf.
Excellent. And we have Logan making his return. How you doing, Logan?
Doing great. Doing fantastic. Always happy to be here.
Yeah. And as alluded to by Cameron's intro there, this week we are talking about Deadpool because Disney Plus put R-rated things on Disney Plus, and it was like, well, let's dive into one of those. That's silly.
I was thinking of making my intro thing just like fuck, so you knew right at the top right this is a rated R episode. All right. Disney Plus added Deadpool, Deadpool 2, and Logan recently. And when I threw out to the group the idea of doing one of those for this week's show, Logan, you mentioned you'd never seen the original Deadpool, so
I've never seen Deadpool.
And I imagine then you've also never seen Deadpool 2, right?
Yes.
Yeah. So we hopped into that. Maybe we'll do Deadpool 2 and Logan sometime down the line, but
we'll definitely do Logan sometime down the line. I can assure you, we'll definitely come back to that one.
Yeah. Part of me is like, do I ask for like general impressions now or wait to get into it? I think we'll just wait to get into it. So yes, a little bit of the history lesson here on Deadpool. Originally released February 12th, 2016, which feels like a lifetime ago.
I was just going to say, throughout watching this movie, I mentioned multiple times out loud, like, man, this is such a 2011 movie. Thinking that's when the movie came out. No. And then, like, when the movie ended, I, like, pulled up Wikipedia and was like, this, the usual kind of, like, we're going to do a podcast about this kind of thing. And I was like, holy shit, this is from 2016? And immediately broke my mind and also was like, 2016 is maybe...
It's a wild year, man.
It's exactly. A wild year. We'll definitely get into it. Yeah, I was definitely surprised it is that recent still.
Yeah.
I will this might be in the trivia, so I'll keep it to myself.
I mean, go ahead. Yeah.
The script was actually originally written in like 2009, 2010, and 2011.
Mm-hmm.
That checks out.
I mean, it definitely got like touched up, but yeah.
Oh yeah, for sure.
I mean, yeah, sure.
100%. They had to like update a couple of the references. The original script leaked out online like in like 2011, 2012. Probably around actually 2010. Because I had a copy of it. I read it. Because it's like, this movie's never going to get made. There's no way this movie gets made.
Yeah, it was definitely one of those, and we will talk about some of the other stuff in the trivia, but yeah, it's definitely one of those, like, it was originally in the works back around the time of the original X-Men Origins series of movies.
Right. That was
like
the intent.
They're going to do a Wolverine path, and then they're going to do Deadpool, and maybe they'll do Gambit and stuff like that. And we still never got the Gambit movie.
Yeah.
Channing Tatum.
Who are they going to have be Gambit? I'm trying to... Who's the Gambit?
Channing Tatum.
Channing Tatum
was
that's
one
right.
Right. Yeah, that's the one I saw. Yeah.
The one in the original X-Men was Taylor Kitsch from Friday Night Lights.
Yeah. Friday Night.
Shout out Friday Night Dying Light.
Yep, shout out Friday Night Dying Light. And also, holy crap, was his Bayou accent bad. Oh boy.
I mean,
it was terrible.
It's not like we've ever had a really good Gambit.
I contest that the animated series had probably the best Gambit we've got.
Okay. I mean, sure. But even that, like, if you go back and listen to that, it's going to be like, oh, this is very much just like very, very bad Cajun.
Mon chéri.
It's none of it's good. It's just that's what you're familiar with because that's what you grew up with, kind of thing.
But it's also important to note that there's no such thing as a good Cajun accent.
True. Other releases around the time of the Deadpool era there, as I said, it came out February of 2016. In November 2015, November 6th, we had Spotlight, which was that year's Best Picture.
Yeah, that's a great movie.
Incredible
we had
film.
The Hunger Games Mockingjay Part 2. This is like
That's
the time
not a
where
good
that
film,
was still like winding down and being a thing. That was November 20th.
Creed and the Good Dinosaur came out November 25th.
Another great movie.
Creed?
And not so it's a good movie.
Great movie, not so great movie.
Yeah.
Star Wars The Force Awakens, which we've spoken about extensively on this podcast.
Great movie.
December 18th. So this is like just after Force Awakens, effectively. On Christmas Day 2015, we had the triple threat of the Point Break remake, The Hateful Eight, and The Revenant.
There's 1.5 good movies in that, I would say.
Yeah. Dirty Grandpa came out January 22nd, 2016. Hail
Weirdly
Caesar.
good movie.
Hail Caesar from the Coen brothers was February 8th. Sorry, yeah, you want to go weigh in on Dirty Grandpa?
Dirty Grandpa. Surprisingly, really, like, that's the one with Robert De Niro, right?
Yeah. And Zac
Efron. That's a surprisingly, like, really solid film.
Yep.
It's absolute trashy. And at one point, there's, like, a very, like, not okay scene that is just, like, should not have been kept.
in it too, right? Anna
Kendrick?
Anakin.
No, and I don't think it's Anakin.
It might be Anakin. They're in a different... Well,
no. Anna Kendrick and Aubrey Plaza are in
another one.
A different Zac Efron movie, I think.
Yeah.
Already Googling it. We're already going to find out.
They're in the Zac Efron movie with the guy from Pitch Perfect as like Wedding Crasher. It's basically like a Wedding Crasher.
Wedding Crasher.
Hey, you want a free vacation to Hawaii.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. No, this one, surprisingly, like, really solid movie. Aubrey Plaza, incredibly dedicated and determined to have relations with Robert De Niro. Oh, this is the R-rated Disney Plus podcast. She wants to fuck Robert De Niro super bad. She makes it very, very clear throughout that film. And it is hilarious to watch because you're watching Aubrey Plaza with her like stoic, kind of like traditional, like the way she acts, and then just saying like the nastiest, dirtiest things to Robert De Niro. And it's just it's one of the funniest things to me for some reason. Yeah. Also, that's where the incredible line "fuck 'em up, Alf" comes from. Danny Glover's in a retirement home watching an Alf rerun, and Alf hits a cat, and he says, "Fuck 'em up, Alf."
Good to know.
Right, it's a great scene. It's a great scene. Pivotal in cinema for sure.
Sure. Alongside Deadpool here on February 12th, 2016, we had the long in development / long overdue Zoolander 2 came out same day as Deadpool.
Fun fact, the Zoolander 2 was one of the most anticipated movies of that entire 2-year block we're kind of covering here. Zoolander, for years and years, I've said since I first saw it, was my favorite comedy of all time. It's more nebulous now because there are a lot of great comedies, but it's certainly one of my favorite comedies still. And Zoolander 2 is burned in my mind as one of the most cringy movie theater experiences I've ever had, where like me and one of my best friends who also loved Zoolander went to that together, and first sign we're maybe not in for a good movie. We walk in opening weekend, and there are, counting the two of us, 5 people in the movie theater. And then we proceed to watch it, and it was literally that thing of like 15 minutes into the movie just looking over me like, this is bad. Like, this is not going to be good, is it? And him just being like, no. And just no one laughing silently together for 90 minutes. It's...
I knew it was going to be bad the moment they announced, hey, we're doing Zoolander 2. And I said, it's 20 years too late, man.
Yeah. Zoolander never clicked with me in the first place. I've never seen Zoolander 2.
Fair.
But the experience you just described was the experience I had with Super Troopers 2 in theaters.
Sure.
Which also like, and Super Troopers is kind of the same boat. Like I've seen it, and I've seen like parts of it multiple times on like Comedy Central or whatever over the years. But like even that, like, and the Broken Lizard, like a lot of their humor just doesn't necessarily like gel with me. So I watched
certainly
that,
gels with me.
And I remember watching that one and just being like, oh yeah, this isn't like, I'm pretty sure I watched that on Movie Pass, and I was like very grateful in that era of Movie Pass, because yeah, otherwise I wouldn't have seen it. I would not have paid money to go see. But yeah, it was very much a Movie Pass era film with Super Troopers 2.
As somebody who owned Movie Pass and never used it once because it was too much of a cumbersome piece of shit to use, they really got a lot of money out of me for it.
That's a shame.
Didn't keep them afloat.
Exactly, and then they went bankrupt. A couple other here from around this time. Following Deadpool in February, Zootopia and London Has Fallen came out March 4th of 2016. And then Batman v Superman, Dawn of Justice was March 25th. So that's kind
I'm going to say, Trevor,
Yeah.
this might be the most all over the place collection of movies we've ever had on the show. Like, it is such a great mix of like highs and real lows.
Yeah, it was
like seemingly every other movie. It is crazy.
It was a wild time, and there are probably some that I just didn't even bother pulling in here.
Well, yeah,
right.
The one thing I want to say is out of those last three, one of those films is a film about overcoming, and really incredible and important racial divides as we talk about serious matters that happen in society, and the other is Zootopia. That's a joke about London Has Fallen.
Yeah.
Anyway.
Yeah, I'm gonna kick.
Not where I thought the joke was gonna go, but yeah.
Yeah, I'm gonna kick Cameron off this call. Anyway, back to Deadpool. It has a runtime of 1 hour and 48 minutes. In the Fox X-Men timeline of things, we had the Wolverine, which was the second of the Hugh Jackman Wolverine standalone films, had come out July of 2013. X-Men Days of Future Past was May 23rd, 2014. And we had Deadpool here, February of 2016, followed shortly by X-Men Apocalypse, in May of 2016, which I will always remember because a ton of us went to see it the weekend of Kind of Funny Live, and the best reaction the movie got was the Fox logo at the beginning, because
the old Colin and Greg
and Greg Live bit of like the like blowing it on a terrible recorder kind of thing.
Yeah, like
yeah, like everybody in the theater laughed at that. And then we were in for a rough 2 hours after that.
Yep. Holy shit, that movie was bad.
Yeah. We have March 3rd of 2017. We got Logan. We got the follow-up to this one, Deadpool 2, May 18th of 2018. We got Dark Phoenix, which I still have not seen. What are you whatting, Cameron?
I know. No, I'm having the same thing Logan had, but with Deadpool 2. It was only in 2018. It was only 4 years ago.
Yeah. Yep. The weird thing for me is like I remember enough of Deadpool 2 that like I kept expecting Deadpool 2 things to happen when watching Deadpool 1 here. Like the two movies have like blurred together in my mind. And so like there was a whole bunch of stuff where I was like, "Oh, yeah, those characters aren't even in this movie."
Are you thinking of the
I'm thinking of Domino.
Ariel,
I'm thinking like obviously I remembered Cable wasn't in it, but yeah, the Wildebeest's kid or Wildepeople or whatever it is.
Wildepeople, yeah.
Yeah. I was like, I kept expecting him to show up, and I was like, oh, he's not in this one. I'm thinking of the wrong movie. Anyway, Dark Phoenix was 2019, June 7th, 2018, and then the X-Men timeline came to a close. Finally, with the New Mutants, August of 2020. After many, many delays, it finally got put out to pasture very early in those pandemic days.
Oh shit! Yeah, you're right. It did eventually come out. I never watched it.
Yep, did finally come out. I think it was like one of those first ones back when people were like, "Yeah, we'll risk it," and then nobody went to theaters. Not that anybody was going to see New Mutants anyway, but
I was planning on seeing it, but the pandemic happened.
Sure. Anyway, our roll call here. Our director is Tim Miller. This was his major directorial debut following assistant director work on Thor: The Dark World, but he'd also been a visual effects supervisor over at Blur Studio on a lot of those like big Blur trailers that are, iconic in the games industry for things like Mass Effect 2, Star Wars: The Old Republic. He'd also worked on visual effects for Scott Pilgrim vs. the World. After Deadpool, he would go on to direct Terminator Dark Fate and a number of episodes of Love, Death, and Robots. The writing duo here is Rhett Reese and Paul Wernick. They wrote for the Joe Schmo Show, which is a thing I remember way back in the day from Spike TV.
Yeah.
And I chuckled at that. They were also the writing team behind Zombieland, G.I. Joe Retaliation, which I believe is the second G.I. Joe film.
It is,
It is, I
and it
believe,
is a
yeah.
surprisingly solid film.
Okay.
The Rock's in it. That's what carries it.
Sure. They would also go on to work on Deadpool 2, Zombieland Double Tap, and they are slated to work on the upcoming Twisted Metal series. That is going to be out there from the PlayStation team. And shout out to my friend from college, Allison Taffel, who is also a writer on that show, alongside Ify Nwadwe.
Shout out Allison.
Ify Nwadwe.
Ify Nwadwe is in it?
I believe he's writing on
writer?
it. I believe he's a writer.
Oh
on the
man,
show as well.
that's got to be a banger show.
Yeah, it's gonna be a fun writers room over there.
Yeah.
And then Rhett Reese and Paul Wernick are also announced to be writing the presumed Deadpool 3 that we will eventually get in the MCU somewhere. Who knows? We didn't get any word from it or any placement on the calendar from it.
Did you see
San Diego Comic-Con?
Did you see what Kevin Feige put out today? There was an interview with Kevin Feige.
I did not. Is it that
so-
we're gonna hear X-Men and Fantastic Four stuff at D23? Because that's what the rumor's been.
No, he was talking specifically, and this is kind of like why people are like leaning heavily on that rumor. This is like more evidence of that. Is he talked about being in talks with Ryan Reynolds about putting the new Deadpool stuff together for like whatever the future of Deadpool is. He says he said it's a lot of fun being in the Ryan Reynolds universe.
Oh, okay.
And
Yeah,
it's
I know.
like, yeah.
I know they'd been discussing it for a while, and it'd kind of been like, yeah, no, it's happening. But yeah, I had not heard anything new on it today. Speaking
I'm
of Ryan
stoked.
Reynolds, let's dive into the starring. Ryan Reynolds here, obviously, as our showcase of Wade Wilson and Deadpool, having been in projects like Van Wilder, Two Guys, a Girl, and a Pizza Place, The Green Lantern. And then after this kind of be a nice little like renaissance of his career. He would go on to projects like Deadpool 2, obviously, last year's Free Guy, Red Notice, and The Atom Project. As well as, I guess, like Detective Pikachu and a whole bunch of other things. He's Ryan Reynolds. He's always playing a Ryan Reynolds type. We have Karan Soni playing Dopinder, who'd previously worked on projects like Safety Not Guaranteed, the Amazon, one of the early Amazon shows, Betas, which I remember watching and enjoying alongside Alpha House in that era. He would go on to be in Ghostbusters 2016 shortly after this. He will obviously return in Deadpool 2, and he's also in Pokemon Detective Pikachu. Ed Skrein playing Ajax was the original Dario in Game of Thrones before he got replaced by Michel Huisman, who I knew from Treme at the time. He also would go on to be in projects like If Beale Street Could Talk and Alita Battle Angel. Stefan Kapicic is the voice of Colossus here. He would go on to be in Deadpool 2. He's also in the Call of Duty Modern Warfare remake from a couple years ago, and he's been in a number of episodes of Better Call Saul. Brianna Hildebrand playing Negasonic Teenage Warhead was in The Exorcist prior to this. Actually, no, The Exorcist was after this, as well as Deadpool 2 and Lucifer. We have TJ Miller playing Weasel, who's previously in projects like Cloverfield, How to Train Your Dragon, Silicon Valley, Big Hero 6, and then after this he'd go on to be in Ready Player One, Deadpool 2, and he is our first problem actor of the film here. Morena Baccaran playing Vanessa, known to many from Firefly and Serenity. She was also in V, Homeland, and Gotham, and she'll go on to be in Deadpool 2, of course. And Gina Carano, our second problem actor, playing Angel Dust, previously having been in Fast and Furious 6, and then would go on to be in The Mandalorian before she would get written out of Disney+. Leslie Uggams playing Blind Al, previously in projects like Black Girl, Roots, and then would go on to be in Empire, in many episodes of Empire, as well as Deadpool 2, and our eponymous Stan Lee cameo as the strip club DJ, having been in Mallrats and 100+ cameos elsewhere. So that is our cast and crew of this one. A little bit of trivia. when 20th Century Fox refused to pay the writers of the film, Rhett Reese and Paul Wernick, for on-set input, Ryan Reynolds paid out of his own pocket for them to be on set to look over the film. Reese stated, quote, "We were on set every day. Interestingly, Ryan wanted us there. We were on the project for 6 years. It was really a core creative team of us, Ryan, and director Tim Miller. Fox, interestingly, wouldn't pay for us to be on set, so Ryan Reynolds paid out of his own money, out of his own pocket," end quote. Ryan Reynolds was allowed to keep his Deadpool costume after filming had completed. In parentheses, technically he didn't ask to, nor did he give anyone the chance to take it from him. When 20th Century Fox found out about this, they honestly didn't care and just let him keep it. I kind of just wish that that's just one that like Ryan Reynolds put in himself into the IMDb trivia. In the scene where he is dealing with the stalker pizza delivery guy, Wade is wearing a t-shirt with a portrait of B. Arthur on the front, reference to a fact that in the comics, Deadpool has an affection for B. Arthur and the Golden Girls. According to Ryan Reynolds, on the Blu-ray commentary track, it cost $10,000, which went to charity, to get approval for the use of this image.
Oh, yeah.
Deadpool became the first R-rated movie to have a 3-day opening weekend of over $100 million at the U.S. box office, while films like The Matrix Reloaded and The Passion of the Christ had earned well over $100 million by the end of their first full weekend of release. Those movies had opened wide on the Wednesdays before the official opening weekend. Deadpool was apart from some 7 p.m. and 10 p.m. screenings before or on its Thursday, basically Deadpool was the one that had the 3-day weekend record there. Which I believe basically got destroyed by Logan either later that year or the following year.
It did. The following year.
The opening credits was originally a placeholder, but Tim Miller found the parody titles funny enough to put in the movie. As a bonus, due to no actual names being included in it, filmmakers were not required to abide by guild rules about the crew and actor credits. A 3-minute test reel was shot in January 2012 in an attempt to convince the heads of the studio to move forward with the movie, which, as Cameron touched on earlier, had been in long development already at that point. On August 1st, 2014, the footage was released to the public and basically it was leaked by presumably Ryan Reynolds or Tim Miller, as they would probably be the only ones who would have had access to the footage.
They are confirmed outside of Fox Studios. They are the only two that had access to it.
Yeah.
So it's one of the two of them, and they refused to say who.
Yeah. But based on overwhelmingly positive response from fans, the film finally began production. Footage was so popular that part of it was recreated for the actual film. This included the opening scene with Deadpool on the highway, which leads to the fight scene in the car. It's basically like there are a lot of like direct beats to the diving into the car fight sequence. Throughout the film, Deadpool accuses the studio of not having enough money to pay for several elements in the movie. In fact, Fox Studios cut $7 million out of the film's budget at the last minute, necessitating several rewrites. Items cut from the film included a motorcycle chase between Wade and Francis, the addition of more named villains, and several action sequences. For the latter, the fights were scaled down by just saying Deadpool forgot to bring his ammo and gun bags. So, clever little workaround there. And this is one that
it's bullshit. It's fucking bullshit. Anyway,
yeah, of course. There's also one out there that I didn't include here, but because Deadpool 2 will actually get a little bit more proper cameos from like X-Men cast. There was apparently a like post-credits tease or tag that they were going to include that was going to be Beast shitting on Deadpool's lawn, which he jokes about in the film. And Nicholas Hoult was apparently even game for it, but they couldn't make the schedules work out. So, oh well. This last one is just one that I always remember enjoying when the movie had come out, because this would have been, this was hot on the heels of Captain America Civil War, or not, the Winter Soldier and stuff like that. In the final climax scene, the crashed aircraft carrier looks like a helicarrier from the Avengers movies. However, since the X-Men franchise was owned by Fox and the Avengers was owned by Marvel, director Tim Miller designed it to look as much like the Avengers helicarriers as he could without crossing the line and risking a lawsuit by Marvel, as Marvel and Fox had a long-standing battle over what can and cannot be used in each other's films at that point. So I just always like the like helicarrier vibes of that final set piece. So yeah, that's what we've got for this. So let's dive into How does it hold up? Obviously, we talk a lot more these days about like a lot of the recent stuff as it's going. So it's been a little while since we've had like a how does it hold up kind of thing. And admittedly, as we touched on, this is only from 2016, but how does it hold up as a 2016 offering? Logan, I believe you had some thoughts, so I'll throw it to you first.
Yeah, it's interesting. I think this movie, and I put it in Slack even, like, I think this is such an early 2010s movie. I think it's such like a 2010, 2011 movie in all the ways that are good and bad about that. And I think the thing I realized, basically a decade after the early 2010s is I'm not sure how well those movies hold up, right? Like, I think we watch superhero movies like The Dark Knight or Batman Begins or the Tim Burton Batman films, the Chris Reeve Superman movies, and those sort of have this like timeless feel to them a little bit, and this doesn't. This very much feels of its time and place and era, particularly in its sense of humor. And part of me wishes I really had watched this movie when it came out in 2016, and I might have different thoughts than I do. It might have appealed to me more. But even then, I feel like this is a great, awesome, hilarious movie when you're between the ages of like 16 to like 22. This movie is speaking directly to who you are. And even by 2016, I wasn't in those age ranges, but certainly now as a 30-year-old man watching it for the first time, I'm like, yeah, okay, like it to me is a sort of comedy film that takes like 100 jokes and like throws them all at you, and like 30 to 40 of them are going to land for you. And it's just sort of going like quick enough that you're not really ever going to be bothered by the ones that don't. Like I think it's fine. I think it's good. I definitely still laughed at parts. Definitely still moments that worked for me. But I was surprised at how much I didn't love Deadpool. When I kind of thought I would, at the very least, like really enjoy it if I didn't love it outright or like have a great time with it. And I ended up watching, being like, oh yeah, like. This is 2016. This is a 2015 movie. Because that's the thing. Like, even in 2016, this feels like it was already like 3 or 4 years too late in terms of like the sense of humor it's going for, I think.
I think there's a lot of like, I especially think it's odd, or it would be interesting, like watching this for the first time now, because even in the last 6 years, we've had so much more superhero saturation and so many more things commenting on superhero saturation. Like this predates The Boys and stuff like that. Or Invincible and stuff. Well, not the Invincible comic series, but like the Invincible animated series and stuff. Yeah. And so I think there's a lot of like this at the time was still pretty early on poking fun of superhero landings and stuff like that. Whereas
and doing it dark and gritty and gory.
Especially on the like R-rated side of things. Whereas like nowadays, even Marvel is kind of taking the piss out of its own stuff through Miss Marvel or through Black Widow, when Yelena's, riffing and joking about
superhero
pose and stuff like that. So yeah, it is very much like it's an of its time kind of thing. And that's in part why I kind of like tried to include it in the context of even within the X-Men series where this fell. Because this is, riding the highs of the relative highs of X-Men Days of Future Past, which was the like, let's bring the old and the new together and have some fun with that. And to its credit, like one of my favorite jokes in here is when Colossus is threatening to bring Deadpool to Professor X, McAvoy or Stewart. The
absolutely
meta commentary on that. But yeah, it's obviously like a few months later, the X-Men is going to fall off a cliff with Apocalypse and save Logan, not really recover. Like Deadpool 2 is more of this. So if you like Deadpool, like there is fun to be had in Deadpool 2. But yeah, like X-Men Apocalypse, Dark Phoenix, and the New Mutants were the like ensemble things that exist after this one. Is like, oh, none of those are good. So yeah, it's an interesting kind of like time capsule of commenting on MCU movies, the X-Men series of films. Then not really trying to weigh in too much into like Batman or DC, apart from obviously Ryan Reynolds' kind of much maligned Green Lantern. So you get a few jabs about that. But yeah, it's definitely an interesting like look back through the wheels of time. Cam, what are your thoughts on how it holds up?
My feeling about it is, and this is definitely going to be like part of it, is one, I read the script back in 2011, 2012, whenever it was like out, like put out on the internet, which led to the 2012 footage coming out. So like, and I'll get into a little bit later, and when we talk more about our personal opinions about it. But like, there is something about this film that I feel holds up, not in the way that I would say a great film holds up, but so much as like a time capsule holds up. Films like this are quite literally a product of their time, and it shows because Logan's not wrong. In 2015, 2016. There's lots of parts about this movie that people back then were saying were like, yeah, it's a bit rough at some of these parts because it feels dated. Because it is. It's by the time this movie got made, it was a 5-year-old script, which is not saying, like, there's plenty of 5-year-old scripts that get well done. But we're talking about commentary on a film genre that when it was written, like, and don't get me wrong, it went through rewrites and everything. It was kept being touched on. But the core premise and a lot of the stuff that got carried over were, like Zombieland. It's very much that, and Logan hit nail on the head.
Interesting.
It's a 2010s style, like 2010 to 2015, that 5-year era. It's very much that kind of movie. And there's some really great films that have come out of that era. There's some really bad films that have come out of that era.
Yeah.
And then there are films that are, in a way, both a meta commentary and a like satire on that era of movies. And I feel like this film has gone from just being a comedy and kind of evolved into that sort of meta commentary on the state of, especially the state of pre-Disney buying Fox era superhero films. I think if you were to explain to somebody today that like, yeah, like it would like, it's crazy to think. I remember the news of hearing Marvel got bought by Disney for, I think it was like $800 million. And my first thought was, I can't believe they paid $800 million for Marvel. Because at its core, it's a comic book company. And, but I didn't have the vision that they had, which was, no, it's an IP company. It has these classic IPs that we can monetize. And that's what they did. And so like, I look at this film and I see it being a very strong commentary on that. And I think the sequel also continues to do that in a world where like Deadpool 2, when we watch it and we get to it, if we do it, it is very much a commentary on the world of superhero films after the very clear dominance of Marvel had been, like Marvel had shoved DC and Fox on the ground. Deadpool, and when this movie came out, by the time Deadpool 2 comes out, Marvel has their boot on the throat of both companies. On both like companies, as far as like it goes of dominance in the superhero like genre.
I just want to jump in real quick. The Marvel deal, the Disney deal for Marvel was $4 billion.
$4 billion. Oh my God, it's more than I thought it was.
Yeah, and the deal for Star Wars 6 years later was also about $4 billion.
Yeah, I looked up the Lucasfilm one immediately. That's the one I was like,
oh wow, that's wild. Yeah. I thought it was way less than that. That's crazy.
Nope.
So my apologies. I was
like
wrong.
That was happening. Like the MCU was starting to be a thing when Disney bought them. Like the first Iron Man had come out, Incredible Hulk, in its little offshoot of the universe come out, and I think we'd also gotten like Iron Man 2 by that point.
We'd gotten Iron Man 2 and
Captain America and like Thor were like right there at the cusp.
Thor, yeah. That was a thing.
So yeah, it was very much like, yeah, we're just like, let's gobble up all the intellectual property. That was kind of the first salvo from Disney in those wars.
So like I look at this film very much as it is somewhat of a period piece because of the era that this film was written and produced and eventually came out in. And it's also, I think, a incredible show of, and part of it is also because like, I followed this movie through its development. I'm talking back when I was following it when it was like Ryan Reynolds said, let me do a Deadpool movie after he did Wolverine Origins. when people thought the character was for sure at least is going to be on film totally dead after Wolverine Origins. But Ryan Reynolds kept pushing for it, and he got a band of people together to make this film happen. And, like, this film is is only a thing because of sheer force of will and excitement for this character and its properties and what it can be. And here's the thing. What that is, and I'll get further into it later when we talk about our feelings about the film. It is something truly unique and special. That being said, this film is dated and it's not gonna be for everybody. Flat out, period.
It's especially fascinating, like, watching this, because this is probably, like, really in the modern era, this is the Ryan Reynolds template of Ryan Reynolds being cast as Ryan Reynolds in all of the things he has done since. It is like people cast Ryan Reynolds because they want Deadpool. They want snarky Ryan Reynolds to comment on the things and to crack, jokes, do ad lib runs and get those fun little lines that they can have for trailers and get the fun press that they're going to get when they get a Ryan Reynolds movie. So,
which is part of why it feels like it's longer than 6 years ago.
Yeah.
I feel like that's been the Ryan Reynolds shtick for like a decade now. It's like, oh, it's only been since 2016.
Yeah. So yeah, it's definitely like as a fan of Ryan Reynolds, and we've talked when we did Free Guy earlier on this show, as well as we've talked about it in the past and stuff. Like, Free Guy was one of my favorite movies of last year because of like the Ryan Reynoldsness of it and its general commentary on gaming stuff. But even that has a lot of just like that movie, very similar to Deadpool, is like it's working on a script from a few years ago, so references are going to be outdated and they don't really modernize some of those things. Same with like the Sonic movies or something these days, where it's like the Sonic movies, and that I think Tim Miller is also like a producer on the Sonic movies. One of the people, or one of the people involved in this, is they didn't write or direct, but they are producers on the Sonic franchise, and so even that has like a hint of like, oh yeah, no, that completely checks out, that there's some weird anachronistic elements to some of this stuff, but ultimately, like, and rewatching it for the first time in probably 4 or 5 years, it was wild the amount of things I remembered from this. But then the other things where I was like, where is this element? Oh, that's not a thing in this one. That's not going to be until Deadpool 2. Interesting.
He is the executive producer of Sonic the Hedgehog 1 and 2.
Tim Miller. Yeah.
Tim Miller.
Yep. I couldn't remember if it was him or the writers, but that makes sense. So that's how we think it holds up. Just in general, what did we think about the film? Favorite moments, least favorite moments. I'll kick things off a little bit in terms of like, I remember this was an issue I had with the film at the time, and it still kind of holds true now, is pacing is all over the place on this, because of the structure of how they're telling the story. The fact that like the first half of the movie in like the real timeline is happening on the bridge, but we basically get like a scene and then we go back to, before he's Deadpool, and then we like play out a whole bunch of that stuff. It's just, it really goes all over the place in terms of like where we're going to be in the timeline of this arc, as opposed to let's tell the story straight through. Which I think like kind of gives it like a lot of like stop and start kind of energy to it in a lot of places. But I do like, it even in that, some of my favorite elements are, I think the sequence of him counting down the 12 bullets is just a very fun and still even now like inventive approach to an action sequence. And yeah, like I like elements like that, and just the obviously also the brutality of it in particular. Him like using his last bullet to shoot the like 3 people in the head basically is like, oh yeah, that's definitely something. Like, there were so many times while I was watching this, I was like, holy shit, yeah, this is on Disney Plus now. This is weird. Be it the language or the violence.
Did you guys get the notification that you had like that there were now like new like control settings for Disney Plus when you logged in?
I mean, I got that a while ago, back when they started putting, like, I think when they put like the Daredevil and the Netflix shows on is I think the first time they prompted people for that, and so that's when I went in and updated my settings.
I reactivated my Disney Plus for this, so
there you go. That would do it. Yeah.
Because I couldn't. I can't watch this on.
update,
I can't watch this on the big TV if the kids come. You know?
Fair enough. Absolutely. So yeah, any other highlights or lowlights? Feel free to weigh in on those as well.
I mean, I think the bridge sequence in particular is great. Like, it's easily one of the best parts of the entire movie, and probably my favorite action sequence of the film is that whole bridge sequence, more than the finale, even, which, with a lot more context now, definitely felt a little anticlimactic compared to it, because of just the fact that, like, yeah, they don't have the money for guns and bullets.
Mm-hmm.
And so, like, I think that bridge sequence is, like, so executed. It's such a great showcase of Ryan Reynolds' humor and the action sequences. For me, a lot of the best moments are, like, the cast of characters around Deadpool. Like, I think Deadpool's really fun. I think Ryan Reynolds is great in this movie. He definitely carries it, but, like, really all of the supporting cast around him is excellent, right? Like, I could watch an entire, like, Disney Plus show of just Colossus doing Colossus shit, and I would love it. Like, he's so funny and so great and so, like, earnest, and it's really, really fun and charming. The scene of, like, Ryan Reynolds Deadpool trying to, like, punch Colossus and, like, breaking every bone in his body is never not great. And, like, I think those are a lot of my favorite beats. Him and, like, what is it, like,
and I like the
subatomic nuclear war, like, teenage war,
Negasonic
teenage warhead is also, like, their dynamic is so great and so fun together, and her and Colossus are really funny together in such a great, like, straight man and kind of wild child kind of duo.
Yeah, I like the way the beat with all of the Colossus stuff ends, of Deadpool cutting off his own hand but leaving it, like, flipping Colossus off as he falls off,
grown into, like, a baby hand, like he's Baby Groot.
Yeah,
also great.
Yep, Deadpool did it first. Baby Groot came second.
Mm-hmm. How about you, Cam? Any moments that jump out to you?
Yeah, like, tons. Like, I've watched this movie probably, like, 12, 15 times.
Oh, wow.
This was, like, I'll get into it more. I guess, I don't know if, no, because we'll talk more about our, like, how we, like, our actual opinions about it later.
I mean, this can be, like, we're kind of all blending in.
Yeah.
We're all, okay.
I've done all of my bits and shtick and stuff, so now we're just kind of in that, like, what do we think? Yeah. Favorite moments.
We're talking about the
moments.
movie, yeah.
How does it hold up? All that stuff.
I want it to be noted that I am striving to maintain structure to this show for once.
I mean, well, this is like, we're still in the, like, how does it hold up / what did we think section.
Yeah,
so.
That's fair. There's so many things about this movie that are just like, if you want to know the blueprint to, like, my humor, this movie has a lot of it.
Mm-hmm.
Just, like, wildly outrageous, just, like, stupid lines, like the one I quoted at the beginning. Like, say the magic words, get fat Gandalf to the, like, that's Vanessa, like, crushing the nuts of the dude who felt her up at the bar. And it's like, it's showing that, like, she's a total badass, and she is. And I hate that TJ Miller is extraordinarily problematic. He sucks. I don't like him. I didn't like they brought him back for the sequel. Yeah, I
mean, that the timing of that one was rougher, because like the shit didn't really come out for him until the movie had already been filmed and all that stuff, and so it was going to be one of those things of, like, do they edit him out? And I think even within the movie, I think there is a meta joke about that in Deadpool 2, as, like, one of the crawls is, like, so and so replaced by Christopher Plummer, because obviously that had happened with Kevin Spacey prior to that. But yeah, I think it was just a, like, and I think he does get cut out of significant portions of Deadpool 2. But yeah, it was just he's a problem person, but he wasn't yet outed as a problem person by this point.
This is still, like, the heyday of TJ Miller, where, like, everybody still loved him, and it was great. And, like, I'll just speak to it. He's terrific for playing Weasel. He's fantastic. Weasel's supposed to be this kind of character, and I forgot the exact line, but you look like a avocado.
Had sex with an older avocado or whatever.
Avocado? Yeah.
Right, yeah.
Sex with an older, uglier avocado. Like this film has so many great lines where it's like, yeah, this is like, if you're like, hey, what's Cameron's kind of humor that he really enjoys and also like does a lot of humor in regards to it, it's that you can't tell me, and I'm sorry, you can tell me, but you can never convince me that when he's talking to Blind Al and just anything regarding Deadpool and Blind Al is fantastic. But in particular, when he tells her that the hand's big enough and so he's going to jerk off with it because for once in his life, it's going to feel huge. Right. I'm sorry. That gets me every time. I know it's childish. I know it's inappropriate. I know it's not that funny, but it gets me every goddamn time and I can't help it. All right. The just look of like, and that, so like, that's the thing. Like this movie has so much of the humor that I like, but I should also mention, and this is where I want to bring this up. I am a really long time Deadpool fan, and I don't mean like, oh, I like him. Like I'm talking, I have the image, like the digital images of it and the archive for it, but I have collected like old school Deadpool comics. For a lot of people don't know, why is Deadpool called Deadpool? And it's not because of the way they say in the movie. It's because he was originally a ripoff of Deathstroke. Because where do you do the Deathstroke? In a Deadpool. Yeah. That's the joke. He is a C tier one-off villain who gets killed in his one-off thing and then is brought back later because they decided, let's give him Wolverine powers and also let's give him a story of being like part of Weaponette. Like all this stuff happened for a 6-issue miniseries that came out in the early 90s. Written by and like drawn by, I forgot his name, but he's the guy who's famous for the pouches in comic books. Like he's the reason why when you think of like traditional like late 80s, early 90s comic books, you think of an incredibly upper body ripped dude, tiny legs, circular feet, and then just pouches everywhere. This is like the character design, the basis of this was created at that point. And he was wisecracking but when he got his own series and actually they started bringing down the really fundamental parts about Deadpool, the breaking the fourth wall, like the multiple voices in his head, all sorts of like the stuff that we now consider iconic Deadpool, was crazy that they were introducing it at that time in the 90s, where like there wasn't a lot of commentary about comic books, and the fact that Marvel was doing it was cool. I'm a longtime fan, but what I really like about this movie and what really holds up for me and like is the thing that holds up most for me, why I think it's special, is because Deadpool is at its core it's not the jokes, it's not the gore, it's the humanity of his character, where it is this guy who is bonkers, he is insane, but he has a really good heart, like at his core, like, and that is the thing that is the lifeline for who Deadpool is throughout the entire run of his own, like his two, I think he might have 3 different full-time, 3 if you count Cable and Deadpool as one of his series, then yeah, he has a 3 lines of comic book series of writing, like continuous storytelling. And it's been incredible at some times. At some points, the story of Deadpool stories are some of the most heartbreaking, heart-wrenching stories in comic books. Especially coming from an era where Marvel was not doing those kinds of stories.
So to summarize the last 7 minutes, Cameron, big fan of Deadpool.
I'm a big fan of Deadpool.
Likes Deadpool.
Yeah,
Cam likes Deadpool. Because I agree. One of the elements that I was going to chime in on and say that I really like about this is the relationship between him and Vanessa. And yes, in particular, I think the chemistry between Ryan Reynolds and Marina Baccarin is just
crazy,
phenomenal. And it's such a weird, fun, twisted chemistry that obviously we don't often get to see those kinds of dynamics. The International Women's Day joke and whatnot in that little montage of the holidays. But at the same time, I was also as you started talking about the humanity of the character, the immediate and how deep down he's a good person. The first thing I think about is him shooting Ajax in the head as Colossus is trying to give the 4 or 5 second speech, and Colossus is like, "Why would you do this?" And it is yeah. he can be good, but he can also be like, no, screw this guy. He's not going to be a problem for anybody anymore. He is the anti-hero. That kind of character and force for chaos.
I will say him and Vanessa I love their love story because it's basically the story of two incredibly broken people coming together and helping each other be whole. And of course, then the tragedy around everything is pretty solid. One of the things I love most about this film, though, is that it touches on a lot of things, and it puts a lot of comic book history, because they knew they thought they were only ever going to get one shot at this, and so they tried to cram as much Deadpool in this movie as possible.
Mm-hmm.
And so in this movie, you literally have the three major eras of Deadpool that I was talking about, of his comic lines. You get all three shoved into this. And so, yeah, it's a pacing weird. Yes. A lot of it is tied to the fact that they only thought they were ever going to get one shot at this. And so they did everything they could. And even then they were cut out $7 million plus and had to cut all those scenes and everything. But there is, at its core, what Deadpool is. It's about a wise ass who is constantly put in really shitty situations.
Mm-hmm.
And is trying his best, even though, and it's kind of also the story of a shitty person who's just trying to do their best. Whatever they're choosing to do, whatever they're trying to do their best, but they just happen to be a shitty person. And it's that level of that era of anti-hero, and that level of anti-hero to me was it was really cool as a teenager, sure. In my early 20s. Deadpool was a constant for me, and I don't own any Deadpool merch anymore. I don't own a lot of this stuff anymore, and it's mostly because of what he's kind of turned into, which is the meme cash grab. Which is not to say that wasn't what he was before, but my interests have also shifted a lot, and it has a lot to do with, especially in comic books, Marvel being stagnant. But I think this movie is, if you wanted a personification of who Deadpool is as a character, it's this movie. And yeah. I think they nail every aspect of Deadpool, the good, the bad, and the ugly. It is what it is. I'm not going to argue that there aren't cringy parts of this movie that don't really quote unquote work. They work for me because I know what it's referencing. I know the details, the history of it. But so if people say well, this one part, it's I get what you're saying. You're right. It's bad. But this is why they included it. And this is why it's actually important. And I love that they bring in, so Negasonic Teenage Warhead, I believe, is an original character for this movie.
No, she's like a super D tier X-Men.
Is she? Okay.
Yeah. They originally had other X-Men in mind, but then they kind of stumbled upon her and were like, that's just a funny enough name. We're gonna take that character and bring her in.
So it might be a different characterization then. But I love that it's a side of Deadpool where it's this is and they bring it back for Deadpool 2, but it's this and the way that they use this teenager who is very much Wade sees a lot of himself in, and so he gives him a really fucking hard time. Which is a very human thing to do. And you think, well, this is the hero of our movie, so he'll guide this teenager, and no, he just doesn't. And on some level, the teenager likes and respects that on some level, because he's not trying to be a moral arbiter for this kid who clearly doesn't give a shit.
Yeah, she's already got that in Colossus. She doesn't need she doesn't need my two dads kind of thing.
Exactly. And so you think, is this where it's gonna go? And it just doesn't. And it plays right into the fact that he's just no, you are kind of a piece of shit kid, so I'm gonna treat you kind of like a piece of shit kid.
Yeah.
And for somebody who's is stuck in the Xavier Institute of Gifted Children, or gifted children, I can imagine that's a breath of fresh air for a teenager like Negasonic War.
Yeah, we don't need to dive too deep into it or anything, because obviously it's a different movie, but they very much kind of pitched this movie as this is a love story between Deadpool and Vanessa, whereas Deadpool 2 is very much pitched as a story about family with all of the Deadpool insanity surrounding it.
Yep.
And I think that relationship, especially with Negasonic Teenage Warhead, comes out a little bit more in the sequel, if we ever circle back around to that one. But
we got Logan, better. I love this movie. Sorry.
Logan, let's throw it back to you. Any other thoughts or any moments that like just really didn't click for you, didn't work?
So I would be remiss, first off, like, one big thing I want to give a shout out to is, like, I loved all the scenes with Deadpool and the cab driver. Like, I think they're all fantastic. They're so good. And the fact that, like, the first one of them together is, like, such a great payoff for, like, an hour and a half later when they get that second scene together. And it's even better. It's so much funny, right? Like, having, like, the other lover in the trunk of the car. Exactly. Like, it's so good. Like, Deadpool being like, let him go. Kill him, right? Like, just tell her how you feel. Kidnap her. Like, it's such a great, like, dynamic. And, like, it pays off so well. And they, like, speaking of two actors who have such good chemistry, the two of them have such good chemistry with one another. And, like, I already saw that he's apparently going to be in Deadpool 2, and, like, that makes me happy because, like, I think they're just so funny together, and, like, I could get so much of those sequences. So I did want to give a quick shout out there.
And yeah, the payoff, especially to, like, him being in the trunk and then the cab gets rear-ended and you just hear that guy scream.
Yeah. Like, he's one of my favorite characters and some of my favorite recurring bits of the whole movie, and yeah, it made me laugh every time. And then in terms of things that I don't like as much, like, I definitely think the pacing is super weird, like you said. And like, part of that is, like, just maybe can't be helped to a degree when you do a story kind of in the middle and then go backwards. But you're also not just going backwards, you're also cutting back and forth between, like, the present day and the past, which makes it really jarring. But, like, weirdly, I think that is almost flows better than, like, once we are just in the present day onwards, I think the movie takes a while to build back, like, speed up to again. Like, it is definitely dragging for a good chunk in the present day. I think that Francis kind of sucks as a villain. Like, he's super, like, bland and whatever to me. And, like, part of that is, like, his shtick a little bit. Like, he can't feel anything, so he's just always kind of, like, whatever. Mm-hmm. But I think he kind of sucks. He's, like, whatever. And, like, Angel Dust also very bland. Yeah. So
it was funny because we talked about this back when we were doing that Bond show, and when we did Tomorrow Never Dies or whatever it was, where the villain is, like, the guy who bullet in his head. Was it Renard?
What is not enough?
Yeah, there you go. Yeah. Who doesn't feel anymore. I remember we talked about it in that podcast of, like, I know I've seen this thing like since then. Yeah. The bad guy who can't feel pain, so he's dead to the world or whatever. And so when I was watching this, I was like, hey, there's another example.
Yeah, maybe it's just never. Maybe, like, it's an idea that seems really cool, but then when you actually put it in a story, it's hard to, like, execute on. I don't know, but, like, yeah, it's fine. And, like, it's also, to be fair to Deadpool, like, a Marvel problem of having great, engaging, compelling villains, to be fair. Like, they're not necessarily, that's not what they're known for. Yeah. But, like, this definitely has that same issue. So and I think maybe for me...
Oh, I just wanted to give you some give you some insight, Logan. Francis in the comic books is like a big arc villain. Like, their history very much the same. The difference is that Angel Dust is not a character in Deadpool comics, at least not that era, like that saga of Deadpool in the 90s, and his kind of, like, quote unquote origin story. You have Francis is the big, it's not that he doesn't feel pain, he is the big, mean, like, tough guy. And what they don't focus on so much is they show that he's callous and, like, shitty and doesn't care about patients and, like, will punish them and stuff like that just by being an asshole. It's way worse in the comics. So the reason they pull Francis for the film, unless you want to spend, like, another, like, half an hour in the past in the Weapon X program, like, they weren't going to go into that, but, like, he's way worse in the comics, which is why they source him. He is, like, despite the fact that he's not an iconic villain, in fact, he's, like, even in the comic books, he's, like, only memorable because he was Deadpool's, like, quote unquote arch nemesis for a period of time. He doesn't show back up. Like, he's not, like, a reoccurring villain for Deadpool. So for this to be, like, kind of the first one, it is meant to be part of the quote unquote origin story of Deadpool, which is why they use him. But I don't think that he was the best. He's not the best villain. That is for sure.
Sure. I believe it. Yeah, he's fine. I think,
in the film especially, Francis does suck. He's not a good villain.
Yeah, I think part of it too, like, be fair too is, as you already touched on, like I think the supporting cast of characters around Deadpool is so strong that when you see one that just doesn't click, it's like, oh wow, this one is particularly jarring, and such a like fun kind of goofy silly movie.
The fact that they got
main villains are not.
Yeah, the two main villains aren't, and on top of that, also like they got two of like not great actors to be the main villains.
Definitely Angel Dust is not a great actress, but like for like France, I think it's more just like he was probably told like
they just didn't give him anything to do.
That's fair.
Kind of be bland and do bland shit. You can't get excited because you can't feel anything, kind of thing. It's like, all right,
that's
like,
boring.
I guess
it's just boring. The fact, and the thing about it is also in the comic books, Francis doesn't like that his name's Francis. But he just kind of doesn't give a shit in the movie, which is kind of the thing that makes Deadpool
try to go for it, but it like comes across in a weird way, I think.
I mean, I think the big problem is that they like he's just annoyed by Wade.
Yeah.
Like at every turn. And when Wade and Deadpool are like our point of view character and the people like we're behind, he's always gonna suffer from like audience perspective of that. And when it is just he's annoyed by Deadpool more than anything, it's like, okay, well then the stakes aren't particularly high, which is admittedly like that's a thing I kind of like about this in an era even at this time of like everything was like a world-ending threat. This one's not. It's just like Francis is out there trying to do like run guns and drugs or whatever on the side.
It's mutants. He's running like he's human trafficking mutants.
Yeah. And like really just kind of gets caught up through a personal vendetta by Deadpool. That like by happenstance really.
It's one of the things that works about this movie, and it's great.
Yeah, I mean, I definitely do. I mean, in terms of like things I liked, kind of wrap that up. Like, definitely the fact that this is just like super chill. Like, even down to the fact that like, Deadpool, like, it is very hard to kill Deadpool, say, right? Like, I mean, like and so like even there, it's like, all right, he's gonna beat this dude who at the end of the day like can't feel shit, but like isn't invulnerable, and like he's just like a dude at the end of the day, really. And so just like, all right, whatever, like. Yeah, Deadpool's going to kick this guy's ass eventually. If he kicked his ass in the first 20 minutes of the movie, to be fair. Mm-hmm. I don't expect the sequel to go that much better. And so he beat him again. It's super low stakes. It's super chill. The entire time it's just like Deadpool being like, I just want to get revenge. And like that is weirdly refreshing in the era we certainly were in, but even more so now when we get into like multi-universal threats. It's like, I enjoy these kind of stories. It's part of the reason why I like Batman stories so much, because Batman, especially Batman stories by himself, are just like, I'm in Gotham City. I care about this city and what's happening here. I don't give a shit about the rest of the country or the world or a universe. I'm Batman. I could care less. My stuff is petty crime. And so like Deadpool kind of has that sort of vibe to just like, whatever. Like they're out there doing superhero shit with the X-Men. Weird that it's always an empty mansion, as he references. I guess you're always saving the world. I'm just gonna, fight the guy who ruined my life, kind of thing. And like that is really refreshing and nice, and is also parts of what I liked about like stuff like Miss Marvel, and also I think maybe why they had to kind of weaken it a little bit at the end, with like some of the stuff they got into. But like I think those are routinely my favorite standalone stories. Are just, hey, like let's just make it about us and not the entire galaxy for like a second. That'll be when we team up with everyone, guys. It's okay.
I also want to give a shout out to kind of the end there. Something that I don't know if I was too particularly cognizant of like in earlier viewings, but this time around I was like, oh, that's a cool little beat. Is that like, while there is an element of like damsel in distressness to Vanessa, she does manage to like get out on her own and even like saves Deadpool by sticking the sword through Ajax Francis there at the end. So like she like there's like an argument to be made that she ends up kind of saving the day, and yet ultimately Deadpool gets the kill shot.
Deadpool had a knife through his head when she got to him. I think it's fair to say she saved the day a little bit here. Yeah, right.
Yeah.
Also,
I appreciate that element.
Tell me you laughed, Logan. You have to tell me you laughed when he takes off the mask and it's the magazine of Hugh Jackman's face.
Hugh Jackman's face.
Yeah. Like
all the Wolverine references are really good in this movie. Like all the things X-Men Origins Wolverine is really, really good.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, the little action figure of like X-Men Origins Deadpool
Yeah.
being like, no,
It's very
and-
extremely good.
or it was like played to death in the trailers for the movie, but the like, don't make the super suit green or animated.
Yeah.
Like, and they will take that joke, a step further even in Deadpool 2. But yeah, I think there is like fun to be had here, but yeah, there are definitely elements of like, okay, yeah, like the scale of this movie and clearly like the lack of budget it has clearly, plays a toll.
Which is charming, but also like, oh, like this could have been more. So, like, it kind of goes both ways.
They at least have enough fun with it that they can kind of call it out and shit on Fox for not doling out more money or for another X-Men or two. But yeah, I think it would be especially interesting to kind of compare this one to Deadpool 2, which after Deadpool has kind of proven the concept, the studio got a lot more behind Deadpool 2, but they also like amped up the timetable, and so and there were like creative differences and stuff. So like Tim Miller doesn't come back for the second one, and the adjustments that kind of end up being made there. But yeah, it's a fun enough, silly standalone. Weird, especially a weird anomaly here in a Disney Plus era, and I'll be very curious how a Deadpool 3 under the Disney umbrella really, how, like, I definitely think it can work, and I think they can have fun with it if Marvel like lets them play with it and have fun with it and gives them all the resources that they can give them. But yeah, it'll be interesting to see how all of that shakes out. Any final thoughts before we dive into report cards?
That's what I was going to say. Yeah, the last thing I just wanted to say is I think, as messy and complicated and weird and 5 years after a lot of the humor ended, this movie is, to Cameron's point, it is an extremely Deadpool movie, right? Like this movie very much is Deadpool and exactly what I would imagine a Deadpool movie to be. And also, like, I think it is also weirdly one of the last movies that feels like it exists outside of an MCU world, right? Or that has been like super influenced, right? Because even stuff like Man of Steel and everything that's followed in like the DC EU, right? Like that is all very MCU, influenced and inspired by them trying to do their own thing. It doesn't really work for DC, but it's them trying that, right? And like this movie almost feels more like, the X-Men movie or like the Dark Knight trilogy that existed before the MCU really happened. And like for that way too, like Cameron said, it's like a really interesting time capsule of like one of the last gasps of a movie that doesn't really / almost can't exist any longer because of how much MCU has changed superhero filmmaking.
Yeah. Any final thoughts from you, Cam?
Like I said, at the beginning, like I am a long-time fan of Deadpool. I may not be as rabid as a fan as I used to be, but I truly believe this movie was made for me. It was made for people like me who love this character and wanted to see this character come to life on screen. And among those people are the people who put this movie together. This was a proof that you can tell adult stories about superheroes in film. You can tell, like, not for children stories, I should say, rather. But it also proved that you could have that rated R superhero film that got us the opportunities that we got with Logan. That got, like, and in a lot of ways pushed a lot of barriers for what people could expect from superhero stuff. And is it perfect? Not even close. But that's also part of the charm of Deadpool, of the character and the idea behind this movie. It's not a perfect movie. It's a movie made out of passion and love for this character and this universe and like his own spot of a universe. And I adore this movie. And at the same time, if somebody told me I just really didn't like that movie, I understand. it's okay. Like, you're not gonna, like, no beef, no gatekeeping, none of that from me. This is a film that I know is, like, very special and very important to me, but very much not gonna be for everyone else.
The last little thought I will say on it is, I think much like a Robert Downey Jr. as Iron Man, or kind of just from the amount of time we've had them, Hugh Jackman as Wolverine, or Patrick Stewart as Professor X, like Ryan Reynolds as Deadpool is like just spot on casting, and especially because he takes such ownership of the character and basically is trying to like make it the best it can possibly be because he cares. It is one of those, like, in the time since, like, there is the casting the Ryan Reynolds type, and how much he's actually good in that movie, it like seems to depend on how invested he actually is and how much he cares. And I think like Deadpool and like something like Free Guy, I think, are the ones where he actually shows up to put a little bit extra into it. And I think that's in particular just a lot of fun of, he was one of those people that, is paying out of his own pocket to get people on set to try and make this the best possible thing it can be. A couple other just last little Reynolds-isms that I wanted to highlight from some trivia stuff is on April Fool Day 2015, so before the movie came out, Ryan Reynolds had posted to Twitter that the film was going to be rated PG-13, which prompted fan backlash. And Reynolds had to confirm that like it was an April Fool's Day joke, and of course it's going to be R-rated. And he's also gone out there and said that this is going to be like the last comic book character he plays, because he just wants to play this character and have fun as this character, as opposed to diving into all sorts of other realms and stuff like that. So
he made the MCU come to him.
Yeah.
He didn't go to the MCU.
That's true.
Yeah, and he was one of like the first things that was like announced as like, yes, this will be carrying over from the Foxverse.
Mhm.
Like obviously now we've seen Professor X and I think that's probably the only element so far, but like it was one of those like early things was, is Deadpool 3 going to still happen? And people were like, yes, we're going to find a way to make it happen. So yeah, let's dive into the report card. We're grade from A+ to F. Cam, we'll kick it to you first, because I think you're probably going to be the hottest of any of us on this. What do you want to give Deadpool?
This is one of my very personal like grades to give, and like because I can only grade it based off of my personal feelings about it. It's an A for me. Like it's an A. I don't think it hits A+ because it definitely has problems. But to me, this is just like this is a movie that it's like, I haven't watched that movie in a while. I should watch it. Kind of film for me. Like, and I watch it and I enjoy it. I have it on Blu-ray. It's one of my, like I said, I've seen this film somewhere between like a dozen to 15 times. I don't think I've seen it more than 15 times. Because that would be like a record for me when it comes to watching movies. I don't watch a lot of movies for this like the same time.
Apart from Star Wars, you've probably seen Star Wars 15 times.
I've seen Star Wars far more than 15 times.
I've seen Star Wars a shit.
Yeah. Especially the original trilogy. All three have definitely been seen more than 15 times, but that's why they're special to me.
Yeah.
Because even though I know every single scene that happens in those three films, I will still go back and watch it and be in awe and be amazed.
Yeah.
Deadpool's not at that echelon. But but I will put out there that like I just think that this is just such a, like, this film is for me, and it's okay that it's not for anybody else. Fox and Ryan Reynolds and Ryan Reynolds and Tim Miller and the Zombieland writer guys, they all made this happen for me, and I appreciate it. Thank you very much. It means a lot.
Cool. Logan, what do you want to give Deadpool?
What I said when I got to watch the movie is what I'm going to stick with, which I think this is a C+. I think that like totally fits me. Like it is a C+, like a 7 out of 10. Like it is a good movie that I think is, it is a 2011 movie. And so like, take that how you want to take it, right? I think in terms of like a 2011 comedy, like I said,
it's a PS2 game that came out in the PS3 era.
Yeah, yes. Sort of. That's another great analogy, right? Analogy. Like I think, it's going to throw 100 things at you and 40 of them are going to stick. And it doesn't really let you kind of linger on the ones that don't, so you don't have to like worry about it too much. And so yeah, like I think it's good. I think a sequel could possibly improve on a lot of the things in this movie. I think a sequel could also take a lot of the wrong lessons and be worse. It's really interesting, right? Because of like where I viewed this movie at being so different than what I expected, I'm now like, oh, like it could be a movie where like the sequel actually is better than this one, or it could be one where like the sequel goes the exact opposite direction, or hell, maybe the sequel is also a C plus and takes all like a bunch of different lessons that are a mixed bag of good and bad. But yeah, like I had fun with it. I enjoyed it. There are definitely moments that I really, really liked. And even the stuff I didn't like is less me being like, whoa, that's awful, and more just me being like, that's a 2011 joke, kind of thing. And so like, yeah, it's not bad at all.
Did you, I meant to bring it up. Did you watch the post-credits sequence?
Oh no, I didn't.
So it's a
crazy.
fun, and I like, it was different than I'd remembered it. It's obviously not, but like I had remembered it differently. So so rather than like you rewatch it right now or whatever, it's basically like Deadpool comes out, and it is pretty much just a direct riff on the end of, or the post credits of Ferris Bueller's Day Off, of him like in the house in the robe, kind of being like, what are you still doing here? What do you, go home, go, be gone. And like it cuts to black, and I was like, that's not how I remember that ending. And then it comes back. He's like, oh, by the way, we're doing Deadpool 2, and we're getting cable, and we're bringing that in, and it's gonna be badass, or something. Like he says something to the effect of that. He basically teases that they're going to do a Deadpool 2, and cable is going to be a part of it or whatever. And I remember in the real world timeline of things, like
so
it was ballsy for them to do that, and it was pretty much like put in there as like a, this is never going to happen. But I think pre reviews and word of mouth on pre-release had been so good that like Fox had already kind of greenlit that they were going to go ahead and do a second one at that point. And so very much like the first couple weeks after release, it was like, who's going to be Cable? Who are they going to get to play Cable? And there were actors out there like campaigning and trying to basically like get the role through like social media movements and stuff like that. But just a fun little like weird even Deadpool, like in its post credits scene of not even necessarily making fun of movies or whatever, but like making fun of one of the iconic non MCU post credit sequences in the references to Ferris Bueller there.
But also,
because he also goes, chicka.
Yeah. But also he like it also is a commentary and making fun of MCU post credit scenes as well. Yeah, like
it's also like it's basically that the like, what are you still doing here? Like post credit scene, or it's the like Captain America post credit scene from Homecoming, from Spider-Man Homecoming, before that had come out, of like, and sometimes you just wait. And you know, that one being kind of a little tongue in cheek. In terms of my grade, I give this, I'm a little bit higher on it than Logan, but it's not a ton. It's probably like a B- for me. It was like fun and new and had like an edge to it when it came out, but yeah, like nowadays, and with so many other, I mean, like this is tame in comparison to something like The Boys, especially.
Oh yeah,
the
Boys.
I can't even watch The Boys because of how like over the top and gruesome it gets. Whereas Deadpool, I'm still fine with, more or less. So yeah, but it did like pave the way for stuff like that to get big screen or small screen adaptations and stuff. So shout out to that. But yeah, B to B- for me. Extra credit, other suggestions if you like this one. We've got Deadpool 2, Free Guy, Fan 4 Stick, aka Fantastic Four 2015, X-Men Dark Phoenix. I would not actually recommend that to anybody, but
those last two films you should definitely not watch. They're bad.
Logan, go ahead and watch that one. That one's good.
That's great.
That's a great movie.
Thor Ragnarok, Guardians of the
Also
Galaxy,
great.
and Avengers Endgame. And I'm going to throw one other one that's obviously not something you'll find on Disney Plus, but I am a big fan of the Honest Trailers series on YouTube.
Yes.
And the Deadpool Honest Trailer series. Ryan Reynolds got into the joke and basically joined them and joined them for commentary as Deadpool himself in character. So you can go check, kind of see how he pokes fun at his own movie in the honest trailer for it, if you would like. Extracurriculars. What are other people watching on Disney Plus? Cam, you said you restarted your subscription. You watching anything else on Disney Plus?
Yeah, Deadpool 2. I already watched it.
You already watched Deadpool 2? Cool.
Yeah, I did a double feature last night. I watched them both.
Fair enough. Logan, we weren't able to get you on for the Miss Marvel episode, but I know you really watched and really enjoyed Miss Marvel. You want to share any thoughts on Miss Marvel?
Yeah, I mean, I think Miss Marvel is my favorite MCU thing, certainly at least since
Endgame?
Spider-Man. I was going to say Spider-Man No Way Home.
Got it, yeah.
For sure, if not, yeah, since Endgame probably. I think it's great. I think it's really, really like optimistic and lovely and fun and exactly my kind of superhero story as someone who, doesn't typically like cosmic stories that much and doesn't like multi-universal stories that much, and who does just like the street level superhero stories of Spider-Man and Batman and those kind of heroes. I think Miss Marvel fits in that mold so well, and I think it is perfectly cast, and I always love a good coming of age story. It doesn't matter what kind of wrapper you put around it, you can be a coming of age story and I'm gonna love it. I'm gonna eat that shit up, and I think it has probably one of my favorite cast of any MCU thing in a long, long time. It's real great.
Cool. Yeah. If you want more thoughts on Miss Marvel, you can go check me and Cam talking about that a couple weeks ago. I sat down last night and realized that High School Musical, the series, Volume 3, just started this week. So I watched the first episode of that, and that's the only other thing
that's where they go to band camp, right?
Yeah, they're over at theater camp, and it's
somehow worse than band camp.
It's
theater camp.
They're getting very, very weirdly meta with it because Corbin Blue. So the premise for this season is they're at band camp. They're at theater camp. They're going to be doing Frozen, and Corbin Blue from the original High School Musical series is doing a documentary for Disney Plus within the show. Like he's on the show as himself doing a making of series. It's a weird silly meta
that show
thing.
has always gotten weird with the meta-ness of it,
and it's just getting more.
Yeah,
it's also wild because
they know their bread and butter.
Yeah, they basically shot season 2 as what's her name? Freaking superstar
Olivia Rodrigo.
Yeah, as she was breaking through
she's on
and
the
just
show?
she's been on the show since
start.
season 1.
That's how she got started. That was her big break.
It was she'd been doing stuff a little bit before that, but yes, it was basically she did that and then started doing songs for that, and then kind of waylaid into just becoming one of the biggest names on the planet, which happened basically during the shooting of season 2. And so she's kind of a part also because a lot of her stuff is basically songs about her breakup with her co-star in the show. So it's really rough and really really weird and tricky and stuff. And so this is the season where it's okay, now she's a super mega star. How much is she really going to be around the show? And it's very much she's kind of in her own storyline while everybody else has gone off to camp. And it'll be interesting to see how that continues to play out. So, but yeah, that's some preliminary High School Musical, the series, season 3 thoughts from your boy Trevor. I will certainly still just check into it every week because I'm a glutton for weirdness.
Hey, that's fair, man. If you ever want to rewatch High School Musical 2, we can talk about one of the scenes that it's that's when one of the times I knew.
Yeah, it is in my big bucket of hey, if we want to do a themed month someday, we can do the 3 High School Musical movies and then one of the shows or something like that.
I've never seen 3.
I watched them all. I think it was the first time I'd really watched 2 and 3 back when the series was first coming out, just so I had a sense of what they were doing. They very much have strayed from High School Musical stuff, but yeah.
Let's face it, the show was always supposed to be Theater Kids the Show.
Exactly. Yeah. So yeah, that is gonna do it for this week's episode of That D Plus Show. Thank you guys for joining me to talk about Deadpool here. You can follow Cameron at Rev Cabot, 2 B's, 2 T's. Anything you want to give a shout out to there, Cam?
Yeah, this Friday's episode of Friday Night Dying Light is going to be in Trevor's hands soon, so he can put it up on YouTube. Yeah, the new episode comes out this week. We are set for like the final 9 episodes, I think. We're at this point, so we're counting down. We're coming up on the end of this series, and it has been an absolute awesome time playing this game as part of like this long-term project for that nerdy site. So come check it out. Check out that series. If you haven't started it yet, go ahead and hop in. But I'm starting episode 1, please. Don't just hop in. You'll have no idea what's going on. Or maybe you played the game.
Unless you've played the game and just want to find just jump into a random spot and see where Cameron's at in the game.
Yep. If you ever want to, like, I watch some of I watch it when I edit it, and I just think to myself, man, I have some really fun, I have some fun reactions to some stuff that happens, especially when I get jumped by a zombie and it's in my face, and sometimes I have some fun reactions to that. So come watch that. That's fun.
There you go.
I said fun too many times. Now you don't think it's fun.
It's fun. You can follow Logan at Lefty Logie. Anything you want to give a shout out to there, Logan?
I mean, I always encourage everyone to go check out Friday Night Dying Lights on everything that we do. No, I mean, as someone who has also wrapped up a long-term project for that nerdy site with that Bond show, I encourage everyone to go check that out. And I'd also just say, yeah, I'm very proud of the kind of long-term projects we've been able to do here at that nerdy site so far this year in the first half, both with Friday Night Dying Lights and that Bond show. I know that there are things that both me and Cameron had a lot of fun doing and are really proud of. So I'd encourage everyone to go check out both of those, as well as, of course, all of the other great content we've been doing. The Let's Plays that Trevor does Tuesdays and Thursdays, as well as that nerdy site show going live every single Monday. Trevor.
You follow me at Trevor J. Starkey, and the last thing on the list I can shout out is That News You Care About that Logan and I do on Wednesdays. Go check out our video game where we chat about news and or just video game themes and topics. You can follow all of us and all the latest from us over at That Nerdy Site, or go to thatnerdysite.com for all the latest. Once again, if you liked what you heard, please rate, review, subscribe, share the podcast with your friends, all that fun stuff. Thank you for joining us. As always, stay nerdy, be good to each other, class dismissed, and maximum effort.